Because with the introduction of AI, the courses where you could just like Google it, you can literally just ask ChatGPT, create a month-long social media calendar for me. And it can do that. And it can do a pretty good job, right? So the thing that I would start with really is like, what's the messaging? What's the transformation of the course? What makes your course different from all the other social courses out there? What's your point of view and your approach? And from that, I would build a framework.
Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Social Media Manager Confidential. Today, I got to talk to KELSEY McCormick. KELSEY is a self-proclaimed squiggly creative and the founder of Coming Up Roses. She knows what it takes to grow a brand from the ground up. In 2020, months into the shutdown and new motherhood, KELSEY planted the seed for what became a space for creatives to super bloom their own brands. By year 2, she grew her creative studio to a multi-six-figure business, and then she shut it down. Today, utilizing her background in content marketing in the music industry and her knack for community building, she pivoted to being a brand leader and mentor for creatives worldwide. She believes in planting the seed before you're ready, celebrating the squiggly parts of brand growth, and that only right way is your own way. Her best-selling programs are Grow Your Own Brand, helping creatives cultivate a point of view and offer garden, and Launch Your Own Way, helping them grow a marketing machine in their business. She lives in Australia with her husband and son, and we got to talk about all things creating a course as a social media manager, what you're going to need to do beforehand, how to create the course itself, how to run like a beta program for it, the launching for it, like everything you need to know, all of your questions about creating a course and how you're going to sell it, even pricing, is in this episode. Before we get into that, I want you to make sure that you double check and make sure you're getting access to all the episodes of this podcast wherever it is that you're listening, whether that's tapping the follow button, the plus button in Apple Podcasts, or the subscribe button on YouTube. There's a new episode every Friday, so don't miss that. And if you're enjoying this free podcast, help me keep it going by leaving a rating or review, again, wherever it is that you're listening. Okay. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, I'm here with KELSEY, and I'm so excited to talk to you, KELSEY. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks. Thanks so much for having me. Super stoked to be here.
Absolutely. So I brought you on today, number one, because I love that you talk about squiggly creative or like squiggly entrepreneurs. Like, I love that. It sounds so descriptive of what it's like being a creative. And then number two, because a lot of social media managers are getting burnt out with all the done for you services and working with difficult clients and all of that. And they want to know how to kind of scale without having to take on more clients or without having to grow like a team. And that's kind of where courses come in. And I know that's part of your expertise. So I think it would be really helpful if you wanted to kind of share what all encompasses that. So if someone wants to create a course, how would they go about starting that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think the best thing to teach is what you've probably learned. What do you speak on really well? Like, where are you most transforming your clients? So say you have a one-on-one social media management offer, like what is your approach to that? What makes what you do different? Like what's your point of view in the space? I think this is all really important when it comes to course creation, because with the introduction of AI, the courses where you could just like Google it, you can literally just ask ChatGPT, create a month-long social media calendar for me. And it can do that. And it can do a pretty good job, right? So the thing that I would start with really is like, what's the messaging? What's the transformation of the course? What makes your course different from all the other social courses out there? What's your point of view and your approach? And from that, I would build a framework. So I would say, what is that framework to take my ideal client from A to B? And this is something you're probably already doing one-on-one. I would definitely not recommend starting a course if you're struggling to get clients. I know, I don't know if you've experienced that, but there's a lot of people in the space that just want to jump right to a one-to-many offer, like a course or something. I think it's much better to probably start with like more of a done with you offer, which is like I'd say that's like the bridge between one-on-one and then one-to-many. And a done with you is more like you're doing it side by side with your client or with a couple of people, and you're helping them maybe build out their social media strategy or plan their reels for a month or something like that. And then you take kind of your method within that experience and you create a course with a very specific transformation. The more specific, the better, don't try to like give people their entire social media world, like LinkedIn,
Yeah.
TikTok. It's too much. I would pick like one really specific transformation, build a framework that you can teach people and take people through, choose a really specific program promise, and then get really good at launching it because creating the course is a tiny sliver of how hard it is. The hard part is always going to be marketing, right? Because when you switch to a course, it's a volume situation.
Yeah, I loved that. And I think it's important. That was a mistake I made when I first made my course years ago. Was it was like an all-in-one, this is everything you need to know about everything. And it was a beast of a course, and it was really overwhelming for people where it was so much information they couldn't implement it all. They just didn't know where to start. That's like my firsthand experience.
Did you kind of switch around from there? Like, what did you iterate and make it more specific?
Yeah. So it's been through a couple different iterations. So my first courses were about like social media marketing. That was before I switched to my niche of social media managers. It was, teaching everyone that. And then I narrowed it down and I was like, okay, we'll just focus on Instagram and growing your account that way as a business. And now I've kind of repurposed that a little bit because now I'm in a social media manager niche. Now it's specific to social media managers, how we're creating content strategies for clients across socials.
Brilliant.
So it's had a few different iterations and it's grown, obviously, as my knowledge has grown. But yeah, I mean, that just kind of goes to show you can always repurpose your ideas and break them down into smaller, more niche specific things. And now it's selling much better. My marketing quick starter course, for those who aren't aware, that's what I'm talking about. It's selling much better now than it did back then because it's so specific to who it's for and what they learn and stuff like that.
It's probably so much more easy for you to market as well. And there's so much you can, like, there's such a vast world of what you can teach in social media. So if you are thinking about doing a course, like what lights you up in the social media space? Is it brand partnerships? Is it TikTok? Is it LinkedIn strategy? I've seen loads of people teaching that recently. So there's just lots of different ways to find your specific angle. But I would start really, really specific there.
I agree. And it's always something that you can like do market research for. See what people are asking, see what people are wanting to learn. Do you have any like insight or tips as far as market research goes?
Yeah, I think build in public is like something I really, really, really believe in. So I would always launch something beta before you launch the full Monty course. I would always build it alongside a small cohort. So, doing your done with you program could be a really great way to do that. Just launch like a done with you version of it before you launch something that's more DIY or self-study or a group coaching program. Like, choose a couple people and take them through it and document the process, share the process, ask your community what they need. Right now, it's not a social media course. I'm taking people through a new course that's teaching them how to pitch themselves on podcasts and opportunities, like hone in on their point of view and be the called upon expert in their niche. And I'm taking 8 people through it right now. I'm building it alongside them, getting their recommendations. We just went through the first round and already I have so many great notes because I built it. I created the first lesson. We went through it together. It was just in a Notion document. It wasn't even anything fancy. And they've given me so much feedback where like, ooh, this section should have come first. Or like, I found this bit confusing. Like, I wish we had gone deeper here. And I'm just documenting and then iterating so that the next time I launch it, it's like much more fleshed out and a proper course. So that would be my recommendation is build in public, and the best market research is doing it alongside your ideal clients and customers.
Yeah, I love that. That's genius. When it comes to kind of the pricing of a course, which a lot of people will ask this. So I don't know if you have any tips about how to figure out what you want to price your course or anything like that.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think pricing is so personal. I think a lot of people want like a magic formula for it, but it's something that, at the end of the day, it needs to be a number that you feel confident selling it at and can get behind. Otherwise, you're going to feel really wobbly and unsure, and that's going to come across in your marketing. I think there's a few factors, right? There's like the market price of things. Like, it wouldn't make sense if your course was, $20,000 because like there is like a certain market pricing of courses that you need to probably consider. There's the transformation, and that's the biggest thing in my mind. I call it transformation-based pricing, what is the value of the transformation that you're providing to your clients and customers? And you might not have the evidence for that yet because you haven't taken people through that course yet. Maybe you've taken people through it one-on-one or, in a done with you sort of offer, but you haven't actually created it in a course yet and you haven't seen it work at scale. So that's where, again, the beta comes in so amazing because you price it a bit lower, you take people through that process, and then you can really decide based on the transformations, a number that feels good for you. I also think pricing it against the other things in your offer ecosystem, considering that, the done for you offer is likely going to be the highest price thing, requires the most manpower, woman power. It requires the most expertise, the highest touch. Then maybe you have a done with you offer somewhere in the middle. And then, your course would obviously be something that's, or your group program or whatever would be something within there as well. So yeah, I think there's like a couple different methods. I think start with the transformation and then, just consider. I wouldn't like compare pricing necessarily, but again, just choose a number that you can feel good about. I also think, I kind of missed something important, which is what do you want to make? And like, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? And so if you're trying to hit 10K months, but you're selling a course at $50, like you need to sell loads of course, like 200 courses, I think, to even be able to hit that. And that's a lot. Like it takes a lot to sell that. So you have to also consider your financial goals and like the time that you're putting into it and the effort that you're putting into it.
Yeah.
How do you choose your pricing?
My pricing is based on the transformation and it's very specific to specific topics they're learning. I like to call them classes because they're not necessarily a full course. It's a class teaching a specific like skill set along with templates and resources for that specific skill set. So they're also, it's important to me that they are accessible and affordable for people. So I like to price them between $67 and $197 so they can really, get them, watch them. They're maybe an hour, 2 hours max, and then digest everything and be able to implement it. So that's how I price it. But I used to price them much higher and have it kind of, they purchased all of them and there would be group coaching and things like that. But I found it wasn't quite as accessible as I wanted it to be and be able to help as many people as possible. So I price it on the lower end and I know I can price them a lot more. And a lot of my competitors do. But that accessibility piece is more important to me than the income.
Yeah, that's really cool too. Cause I mean, obviously you are pricing it based on the transformation, but also like on a value, which is accessibility, which I think is also important. Like if accessibility is a big goal of yours, then maybe you want to consider making courses that are slightly more affordable and just scaling back maybe how much you're doing within them, right? So my courses are pretty high priced because I really value community and support and generosity. So I give a lot in my courses. I'm in there every day. I'm answering questions. There's lots of like community elements. Whereas, there is a version of a course that I could come out with that would be more affordable and just not involve me as much, which is totally possible in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's also, like you said, it's a lot about how much energy and time of yourself they're going to have. My courses, I show up to weekly office hours once a week for like an hour. They can come and ask questions. They can ask for feedback. But that's kind of it. I'm not there every day like you are. And so that's kind of with the deliverables and what all is included in the course. So how much are you going to be there in the course versus how much are they just kind of on their own? That also comes with the pricing, right?
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Yeah, lots to consider. There's no like magic formula, unfortunately.
No.
I know there are some out there, but as far as I just consider a lot of different factors when I'm coming up with my pricing.
Yeah. There is so much, and it's difficult because people are always wanting the magic formula, but there isn't one.
No, there's not one.
What about launching? I would love to hear your take on like launching.
Just launching your course in general or
launching your course.
I think there's a big shift that we're kind of touching on here that maybe I'll back up and talk about first, which is this idea of going from being a social media manager or any sort of creative in a done for you service structure where you are just doing everything for your client. They kind of call the shots. You are almost an employee of them in the energy that's being, exchanged. You have a certain timeline and deliverable, and especially social media managers, I feel for you all, like that is an always on job that has a very high burnout rate. So definitely like see you and hear you with how hard that can be. The shift when you move to done with you and DIY courses, things like that, is a different energy. You're not a service provider anymore. You're not like serving your clients. They're not calling the shots. You're really stepping out as a leader. You're stepping out as someone who has a point of view. You're stepping out as someone who people want to follow and learn from. And it is a big shift. It is a big, massive mindset shift. It's a big, massive shift in the way you receive money, the way you talk about your like there's just across the board a whole different energy that needs to happen first. And that's why the done with you offer can be such a great bridge. I actually have a workshop on done with you offer and building out your first one, because it becomes this bridge for you to start dipping your toes into being the person that people are learning from, but you're not actually doing for them. So your value isn't coming from the doing anymore. It's coming from the knowledge and the expertise and all of that. So that's first. And when you make that shift, the other shift you need to make is really focusing on your own brand and getting really good at marketing. I think so many creatives will be like, okay, I have a full, especially social media managers. It's like, you don't even really need to be good at your own social media because you're so busy doing your clients. Like, you kind of ignore your own brand, right? Well, that can't be the case if you step into teaching and to done with you. Like, you need to actually focus on your own brand. And that's like literally what my program Grow Your Own Brand is all about. And with that comes launching. You need to focus on marketing, actually put a marketing campaign behind your offers so that it sells, because you're focusing on volume now, right? Your first course, you're going from 1 to 1. So I used to do brand and website design. That was my job before I kind of pivoted.
And I love your website, by the way. It is so fun.
Thanks. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. So I pivoted from doing brand and website, where I was charging maybe 15 grand for a brand and website project, to selling $1,000 courses. So instead of selling one project for 15 grand, I need to find 15 people to buy my course. That's a lot more volume that requires marketing. So launching is just this magical, beautiful thing. I love it. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think when you approach it your own way, which is why I called my marketing program Launch Your Own Way, it's actually really empowering and powerful. It's creating a marketing campaign around one of your offers and letting them shine and sell. And that's all it is. A lot of people aren't doing that. So I really have made it my mission to make marketing a priority in your brand. Like, no more throwing spaghetti at the wall with your offers and just being like, oh, I hope someone buys it. That's not the energy that's going to work if you want to step into this new version of your business.
Yes. I love that. We're being purposeful with what it is we're doing and how we're marketing it.
Totally,
you have a workshop on launching, don't you?
I do. Like I have a whole course on it called Launch Your Own Way. It's a membership / course. It's a hybrid. All of my courses are hybrids, like I said, because I really value the community element. So I'm not just like, learn this and then you're on your own. I really like to be in there. So there's a membership part of it. There's live. I teach it live once a quarter, pretty much, over 4 days. And then you can kind of watch the replays. And every month there's guest experts, people, mostly alumni from Launch Your Own Way, who guest and talk about their launches, office hours, like you do, live calls, things like that. So it's like a launch community, but I do have a free workshop that will teach you just like the basics of getting your launch plan set up that I can link to you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll put those in the show notes so everybody can find them. I'll also link your Instagram and Threads. You hang out on both, right? That's where people can find you.
Threads is kind of new this year. It's just something I started doing. I don't know. One day I was like, oh, I forgot about Threads. Like maybe I should start doing that. And then it's so funny how when you attune your brain to something, it just like starts doing it. So now Threads is just like on rotation. Anytime I have a thought, or it's such a fun place because I feel like Instagram's so tough because it's so visual. So there's this I feel like I have to be a video editor half the time and I have to do all this stuff on there.
It has to be aesthetic and it has to match your brand. Yeah. Threads
and it's time consuming. Like Oh my God, the amount
Yeah.
of time I spend like editing together silly little videos is ridiculous. So Threads has become this amazing place to connect with, because I'm very B2B. Similar to you, I work with other
Mhm.
service providers mostly. They're the ones that take my programs. So Threads has become this great place. We're all hanging out and talking and discovering each other. So it's really awesome.
Yeah,
You're on
I
there
love
as
it.
well, right?
I am, yeah. I think that's where I originally found you. I
Oh,
saw you
awesome.
talking on Threads about stuff, and I liked your point of view, and then I saw your website, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's so fun." Gotta
Thanks. Yeah,
follow
it's a
her.
great place
So
to
yeah.
flex your point of view is
Yeah.
Threads.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that is the place to do it.
Totally. Yeah, it's great. So if you are kind of going into course creation, I'd say starting to flex your point of view around what you kind of do and what you believe on Threads is a great place to start. Yeah, just dipping your toes into sharing your perspective. Because yeah, like I was saying before, the courses that are going to succeed in the future are really, really saturated with the person who's teaching it, their
Mhm.
point of view and perspective and approach. Otherwise, people could just Google it or get it on ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where it really brings in the personal brand. You kind of most social media managers don't have one.
Hmm.
You're going to have one in order to have a successful course. So that is something
Totally.
you will need to prepare yourselves for is you're going to have to start showing up and building a
Yeah.
brand so that you have people to
Yeah. Do you
sell
feel like
to.
that's a pain point for social managers in general, is like actually showing up in their own like
Yes.
social world?
Yes. It's like one of those where you get so involved in your own brand or business that you have a hard time picturing anything else or like stepping away and like having like a strategic viewpoint. You're just so in the weeds that you don't know what to post. You don't know what your personal brand should be. Like most social media managers don't post for themselves because they're so overwhelmed and don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. I used to like doubt when I worked in corporate, I worked a lot in social media in the music industry and then in TV a little bit. And it was a really exhausting job, very high anxiety and high stakes too, because it felt like, one sleight of hand and you could like post something wrong or, I
Yeah.
remember like living in a lot of anxiety when I was in charge of accounts that weren't my own and just like not really having a lot of time for it myself because it was like if I was then getting off of work and scrolling, I'm like literally all I've done all day is look at Instagram.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can imagine that's definitely a pain point there.
Yes, yes, for sure. Okay. So it has been so great having you here. I think people are really going to find it very interesting because I know a lot of people, like we said, are getting burnt out from being on social all the time and having to create and all those things. And they're wanting to create courses. So I think you're going to be a really great resource for them. They can connect with you over on Instagram. Definitely check out Kelsey's website as well because it is so fun and I love it so much.
Thanks
Um,
so much.
yes, thank you so much for coming on here, Kelsey. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really, really awesome to chat to you too.
Of course. Thank you so much for listening. Definitely go check out Kelsey, connect with her, let her know you listened to this episode and you loved it. And if you're new here, hi, welcome. Don't forget to leave a review if you liked this episode. On Apple Podcasts, you can click Go to Show in the menu and then scroll down to the ratings area and leave your rating and review there. Or if you're on Spotify, you can go to the show page, not the episode page, but the show page, and then tap the star icon underneath the show description and leave your star rating there. Even if you just leave 5 stars and not a written review, it helps a ton. Extra brownie points though if you do share the link to this episode with a friend. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you next time.